Hey everyone, on this video I'm going to share with you what it's been like living in Portugal for a year on an old farmstead. I share with you some of my thoughts on the things that went really well and things that I would have done differently knowing what I know now, so that if you're thinking to do a jump like this, you maybe avoid some of the mistakes that I made initially. And also with that, happy equinox. Today is the first day here where it's starting to get sunny. The days are starting to be longer than the nights, so I'm really grateful we've made it. And maybe that's somewhere where I can start right away. The rainy season in Portugal, in southern Portugal, and the cold is very different how you feel it compared to if you're living in a cozy, reasonably modern flat in Northern Europe. So in Portugal, if a house has double glazed windows, that's already kind of unusual and a luxury, especially for an old house like this. But there are many rooms in this house, for example, that don't have insulated ceilings. So you can imagine that becomes really difficult to heat. And heating a house like this is my first big learning that I would like to share with you. When we arrived, which was March last year, so we didn't even spend all winter here, basically this house only had fireplaces. So I ordered wood the way people do here, and we heated this house by burning wood. And as you probably know, fireplaces are extremely inefficient, and that was my big mistake. It's not really possible to heat a house like this, especially because it's been empty for months. Everything was very cold with open fireplaces. It's very kind of last century, 2 centuries ago technology. So I would highly recommend, if you do find a house like this, an old farmhouse that you want to move into, check that it has double glazing, ideally insulated ceilings. Even if it's just wood, that's better than nothing. And prepare or negotiate with your landlord to install so-called pellet heaters, which are these kind of little boxes that have some fans in them and some ignition systems. They're incredible. They're not that expensive. Cheapest ones start around $500. We got ours in Brico-Marché. I'll put a link in the description. And basically you put wooden pallets, little tubes, little things of wood inside in the top, and it slowly burns them extremely efficiently. And all we had to do was make holes in the wall about this big to put the tubes out, and that was it. And then we had some rooms in the house now that were warm. And also it's way less maintenance than a fireplace with carrying wood in and stacking wood and carrying ashes out. So if you're gonna move and spend a winter in a Portuguese old house, definitely plan to get pellet ovens or also potentially wood burning stoves. But honestly, the cost is kind of the same of buying wood or pallets, and I would highly recommend pallets because it's way more comfortable and less hassle. So first thing definitely that we learned. Second thing is, even though these houses with these thick walls that breathe are amazing, they do let humidity in also. So one thing I did is I basically closed off all the gaps in the ceiling, everything I could find with silicone, transparent silicone, to keep the humidity out and keep the heat in. Prepare to do some do-it-yourself home improvement kind of thing on these houses, so that the heating that you put in doesn't just go through the ceiling and out. And prepare to get some dehumidifiers because, yeah, humidity is the thing. If you don't have dehumidifiers, even if you've insulated all the gaps, still your bed and your clothes are going to feel a little bit humid to the touch, and that's not a nice feeling. And dehumidifiers are not that expensive. Again, I'll link to Brico-Marché, not a sponsored video. That's where we got ours, and they do a great job of keeping the rooms that we use in winter dry, which is actually maybe an interesting thing to know. We don't even use all the rooms we have in the house in winter because there's no way to heat all of it. We would have had to install maybe like 6 pellet ovens. I only did 2 the last fall. So I would always recommend preferably to get rather a smaller house that's well insulated, has double glazing, maybe with a nice little garden, than, you know, something very big, which of course is an amazing luxury in summer, but in winter and fall, you're gonna have a lot more trouble heating it. So I'm very happy with this house. I really love it. I think it's an amazing place where we live. But if you're alone or if you're just a couple maybe without kids, having a smaller place that's easier to heat in a more modern standard might be the smarter way to go. Third thing, be prepared to adopt animals. When we moved in, a mama cat basically had her nest in the garden here, and we ended up becoming cat parents, which is amazing. Could have been 7, but we only ended up with 2 of them living with us, so that's cool. And even though they live mostly outside and they're super cute, it comes with the territory, I think, of moving in the south. There's a lot of animals here that kind of need our help. And we're very blessed and happy to have these little ones roaming around our garden. The fourth thing that I would share with you is that if you're moving here from the EU, it's pretty easy paper-wise. You still have to go through a couple of hoops to get your papers and everything sorted to have maybe a business in Portugal. And I hired a lawyer to take care of that for us. It cost it was maybe $1,000. He took care of all the paperwork, which I think is an incredible good investment, because if I had to figure all that out myself, would have taken me weeks. So I can highly recommend you to work with a local lawyer. It'll make getting started here much easier. And the Portuguese state is so cool that if you become an independent worker here, if you have your own company, you don't pay any social security or real taxes for the first year. And from the second year onwards, your health insurance and stuff, it's less than half of what I used to pay in Germany. So it's actually really attractive still if you're a foreigner with an online business to live in Portugal. Taxes are quite low, as is cost of life compared to many other countries, especially Northern Europe. Be prepared to spend more than you probably think on rent. It's still cheaper than Northern Europe, but not that much. You end up with more space usually, or maybe you have a perk like being closest to the beach, but it's not like $500 for a flat or $1,000 for a house. It's a bit more than that. So yeah, if you want to have a bigger place, I would recommend to be further from the coast. If you want to be close to the coast, you're probably going to end up getting a smaller place because prices have gone quite high in recent years. It's still cheaper than a city like Hamburg or definitely Zurich, but it's not like it was maybe 5 or 10 years ago where you could get things really cheap. Those days have gone. Yeah, obviously the perks of living in the south is that once the sun comes, it's amazing and you can count on it from like April to September. It's beautiful, you spend a lot of time outside, but it does also get really hot. Like where we live, it gets to 39, 40 in the summer for a couple of weeks. So we happen to have a pool, which is amazing. But yeah, I think I would recommend to either look for a place where you can put up a pool, like, one of these plastic things, or have a pool, or live close to the coast. If you're living in the middle of the countryside and you have no real water nearby, it's going to get really hot in summer. So yeah, plan to have some sort of a thing for pool. And that brings me to a good point. Utilities here are way more expensive than you would think. They're kind of the same as Germany. So like, electricity and gas, which is what we mostly spend money on, are expensive. Like we spend more than I would have thought. It's not like Portugal has cheap utilities, just so you know that. Plan to get a Starlink probably for internet because it's just very comfortable. You can move it around with you. The initial investment is like $500, but then the monthly charge is $50. Upload is a bit crap. So if you're running a YouTube channel like me, that sucks a little bit, but I love the fact that it's very independent. And if we do move house at some point, we just take it with us and put it on the next place and we're ready to go. The local internet providers are not that fast and many of them just use a SIM card. So it's like you could as well just tether off your phone also. Learn the local language, I would say, is super important. Our son is obviously learning Portuguese because he's going to school here. He's teaching us a lot. I speak Spanish, and so it's easier for me to learn. And I can tell the Portuguese people really appreciate it, even if I speak Porto-Spanglish. It's basically a mix of Spanish and Portuguese. That I do try, and I don't just default to either Spanish, which everyone here kind of understands, or English, because I think it's a kind of a sign of respect that if you're living in a country, you try to adapt to the local language. So I think that's a really important point to plan to have some Portuguese classes. Yeah, I think those are really the most important things I can share with you. Maybe for me to point out that if you want to check all this out firsthand and work with me in the studio, I'm running a retreat this summer called the Flow Retreat, where it's going to be all about finding your flow in the studio and how you can overcome the technical barriers to really get to a state of flow and get good mixes consistently. I'll link it below, and it's going to be in June, so it's going to be hot. We're going to be hanging out in the garden. We're going to be meditating and doing yoga. We're going to be spending a lot of time in the studio making music, exploring sound design, talking about how to get into a state of flow in the studio and not be distracted by all the technology. So if that sounds like that could be for you, check it out. There's 4 spots left right now. Half are already gone. And yeah, I think it's going to be super amazing. We're going to have an amazing vegan chef cooking for us. We're going to have Benjamin Kurtz, who's going to be doing sound healing and also afternoon meditations. I'm going to be leading morning meditation sessions. My wife's going to be doing yoga and somatic body movement sessions. It's not going to be a super spiritual retreat where we're just going to be chanting all day, but I think it's really important and really interesting what happens to your creativity when you start to find a space that is connected really to your true self, to your heart. And I am recommending everyone to do a social media detox while you're here. So yeah, if you want to check that out, join the Flow Retreat. I'll put a link to it also in the description and at the end of this video. And those are my thoughts from living in Portugal now for a year. Would I do this again? 100%. It's so beautiful to live here, and literally every day I come outside and the sun shines, I'm just so grateful and just so overjoyed, because I lived in Hamburg 20 years and the one constant you can count on there are gray skies and rain. So I'm really, really happy to live here. I do miss my older son who lives in Hamburg, of course, a lot. But at the same time, he does come down here often and I go to visit him. So in short, yes, I can absolutely recommend it if you're feeling like you're trapped in a kind of work, pay the bills cycle that never seems to end in the north, because cost of life there is just very expensive. If you can get some kind of an online job and live in the south, it's amazing. So if you can make it happen, jump in, it's absolutely worth it. You can always go back if you absolutely have to, but I think there are many ways to make it work. So that's it for me today. Again, have a great spring equinox. I'm so grateful now that slowly the days are getting longer and the sun is coming. I look forward to seeing you on the next video. And yeah, I hope you have a great time. Bye-bye.